Welcome to Season 6 of the Dramatists Guild Presents Talkback, sponsored by the Dramatists Guild Foundation. I'm your host, Christine Toy Johnson. We're so happy to be back. And this season is all about reinvention. With so much change going on in our industry and our country, I wanted to sit down with some of my fellow writers who also serve on the Dramatists Guild Council and ask them about the many ways they're writing in and about the moment we're in. I hope you'll be as inspired and fascinated by their responses as I've been. In this episode, I get to talk with groundbreaking pioneer and fellow Dramatists Guild Council member Gretchen Cryer about longevity in the field, how development of new musicals has changed over her decades-long career, and how she keeps going. Gretchen Cryer has been breaking barriers since she and Nancy Ford began writing musicals together in the late 1960s, becoming the first female composer-lyricist team produced on New York City stages, perhaps best known for I'm Getting My Act Together and Taking It on the Road. She's one of the Dramatists Guild's longest-serving council members and a president emeritus of the Dramatists Guild Foundation. She's currently writing a new musical with her granddaughter, Gracie Hyland, called House on Fire. Here we go. Gretchen Cryer, I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast. Thank you for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. There's so many things to talk about because you have obviously incredible history, not only with the Guild, but in the American musical theater. And I don't honestly know where to start. So I'm going to start with, actually I do know where to start. I'd love to ask you about how long you have been a member of the council of the Dramatists Guild.
Okay, I became a member in 1973. At that time, everybody had to have had a show on Broadway in order to be considered for the council at all. And Nancy Ford and I had the first show that we ever had on Broadway was 1973. We'd had a couple of shows before that off Broadway, but we had a show, Shelter, at the Golden Theater. And it ran the entire month of February in 1973. But thus, I became eligible to be considered, to be nominated to be on the Guild. And probably they were looking around at the table of all white men and thinking, well, okay, she will be a token of some sort. And so I actually got on the Guild. And when I arrived, Mary Rogers was on the Guild, and Lillian Hellman, who never came to the meetings. So one meeting she was there and I never talked to her, so I never got to know her. And Ruth Getz, who had a play called The Heiress on Broadway. Yeah. And they were the only women on an otherwise white male council. It really was an old boys club. And in fact, Mary once said that it was the best club in town, and it was, because they were all witty, and we had an open bar for council meetings.
I heard about that.
Everybody was drinking and just having the greatest time. And at that point, all of them were making their living as playwrights, unlike most playwrights today.
Yeah.
You know, there was an article in the New York Times, I don't know, a few months ago, interviewing very prominent playwrights like Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, Bess Wohl, I forget the other 2 or 3 other people, about if they could make a living in the theater. Brandon said, now Brandon, who's won the Pulitzer, Tonys, and MacArthur grants and everything, finally he has kind of made his living doing that. But Bess, until now, she's about to have a show
on Broadway
transfer to Broadway. And the other people said no. I mean, playwrights nearly always today have to have day jobs to help support themselves. Most of us would be considered by the IRS as hobbyists. That is, that we don't make our living from our actual writing. We are teachers, we are we have a variety of other waitresses. So it's a strange thing to be in an industry where you're really probably not going to make a living, and you'll have to do something else to support your artistic creations.
Yeah, I've always
and
said
that's different.
Yeah, I've always said it's very strange that my day job is being an actor.
Well, yeah.
So that's been an amazing thing. But
thank goodness you
yes,
have that.
thank goodness. So how has that? You've seen it change, obviously, since the 70s until now. What do you think? What do you think are the main factors that have made that change?
Well, now the latest factor is that the not-for-profit theaters, where many works are begun and developed, they have gone through funding crises. Well, first with this administration, cutting back funding on major arts organizations across the board. So suddenly the not-for-profits are stuck, having not been able to get the federal funding that they perhaps had been able to in the past. And then the fact that theater costs so much to produce these days. And as a result, just in the last 5 or 7 or 8 years, this horrible trend has happened, which is the not-for-profits, which are struggling, if they decide that they want to do your work, which in itself is a big win for you as a writer. Finally, you have a theater that says, yes, I really like your work, I want to do it. Then they say, well, yes, but we'd love to do your work, but we're going to need enhancement money. And when they say enhancement money, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in a not-for-profit that is considered an off-Broadway size venue. I mean, this is nuts.
That the playwright is asked to raise
it, which means that playwrights now not only have to be creators, they have to have sources of great wealth from friends or supporters. And I'm trying to figure out what we as playwrights are going to do about this, because it's a fairly new situation.
Right.
I mean, when I just found out that one of my friends that had his piece done at a not-for-profit in the city last year had to find $550,000, and then I have another friend whose piece is about to be done in the same theater, another $550,000. A couple of things that I have written, a couple of another not-for-profit, not that one, is talking about $300,000 in case of both of my things. So this is nuts. I don't have $300,000 in my back pocket.
Right.
And
who does?
Who does? Other than, now, obviously there are a few people, and most of them are on the council, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 people who have made fantastic money. I mean, if you wrote Wicked, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
You know, or Hadestown, or, you know, those shows, yes, yield Hamilton. You know, okay. Those are huge, huge earners. But the rest of the artists, that's not the world we live in. And so where are we going to be finding the people? I mean, I've really been thinking about this. I think, especially since the government has just slashed arts funding, we're going to have to go to the upper 1% of our population, the people with lots of money, and say, look, guys, it's up to you. You're going to have to start funding us. And I'm really looking into that now and trying to find billionaires who have an interest in the arts and saying, okay, nobody else is, you know, who else is going to do this? The government's, we're not going to have any national support of the arts from our administration, so you guys are going to have to step up.
Yeah, well, I think that the circling to actually the whole theme of this season is about reinvention, because I think we are constantly needing to reinvent ourselves and the ways we get art done.
Yeah. And okay, one of the ways that I have, now, my day job is being a teacher. I teach one-on-one people. I teach a workshop also called Creating Your Own Solo Performance. And I am working one-on-one with many solo performers who I start out as a writing coach, because we start out with a blank piece of paper usually. And then once the piece, and it takes a year or two to find what the story is and work with the people one-on-one. And then, are they going to perform their own piece? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But if yes, then we start putting it on its feet, working on it in my living room. And in fact, I have a salon coming up this next Friday night. I'll invite you.
Please do.
Anyway, not me, but one of my people who's, well, finally I have one piece that started in my living room, in my workshop years ago. Then it's been worked on for 3 years in my living room, and it just was picked up by Penguin Rep, and we just had a very successful run with great reviews, and that gives impetus. Now, but that's an entirely different way to come at getting your things on, is working in somebody's living room for a few years, developing the thing, and then getting it to the place where some not-for-profit can come. And it just so happened that the not-for-profit that picked up Jimmy's piece did not ask for enhancement money. It's one of the few. We need to make a list of the good guys who are not asking for enhancement money. But that's a completely, whoever worked just in their living room on pieces until it got to a performance level. But you can do that with a solo performance because you just got one person in your living room. If you were doing a big cast, that would take money to pay people for their time, you know, so.
And for people who might not understand the idea of enhancement money, I wonder if you can talk about that a little bit. What you're in your experience, because you become an investor in your own piece, or are you really just providing funds?
I don't know the answer to that because I did not have $300,000. So I haven't been in that situation to know what kind of deal that ends up being. Because it sounds like you are a finder. It's not, if it's not your own money, which it probably is not your own money. You have found a person who either believes in your piece or is just a kind friend.
Okay, very kind friend, who has a lot of money
who has a lot of money to help you because
they become
because they like you,
and they become investors.
They become major investors. You still have to have general management, several people who know how to actually get a show up on its feet. So then the deal is the places that are asking for enhancement money are usually not-for-profits, and they are going to then hope, after they have done a run of this piece, that it will get picked up for a commercial kind of run. And at that point then, I suppose the people who have contributed the enhancement money have a piece of the commercial investment. But what the author has as finder of these people, I don't know. I haven't had that experience.
Good question. And also then the royalty pool changes, and that must be influenced. I think this is it's an interesting topic to explore at the Guild and see what we can find out, because I think people would be very interested in knowing.
But your main point is that the terrain is it's shifting sands. And we don't even know where it's going or how it is going to develop. We don't know. We're all these uncertainties, which makes it even more important. Well, it's hard to find investors who don't care if they're going to lose their money, who just are wanting to do it to be part of the arts. So people are probably pulling back from investing in things because of the uncertainty.
I want to go back to the 70s and ask you about the climate. So the climate was different in so many ways. It's you're in the room with the open bar and as Brandon likes to call it, the hot goss. That you probably were hearing from all of those. Tell us who else you remember being part of the council at that time.
Well, Edward Albee, Stephen Sondheim, Arthur Lawrence, Dory Sherry. There was some, and Garson Kanin. Oh God, who all? I think it was before Lanford was there. Oh God. I'll come up with some more names.
That's okay. No, that's really, it's fascinating, all the people that you've mentioned.
They were witty.
Yeah.
They were all witty. And Edward was unapproachable. So I always hugged him when I came in, just to cross his boundaries. But to tell the truth, I got on the council in 1973 and I did not speak for 10 years because I was intimidated by these guys.
Wow.
If you've got Edward Albee, if you've got Stephen Sondheim quipping, you know, you're not going to say anything because you're not going to quip as well, you know.
Well,
so
I think you're selling yourself
so I
short.
I didn't say anything.
What were the kind of burning issues back then?
It had to do with whether or not the guild was a union or not. And there was big discussion about that, whether we were crossing a line by having the minimum basic payment things, you know. I mean, that we couldn't demand it because we weren't a union.
Right, and you're not collectively bargaining because we own our copyrights, so we're not employees.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And we staunchly needed to maintain the right to our copyrights because the reason the guild was formed in the first place was that way back, producers would put their names on plays that they wrote it and had the copyright on it, and the authors did not have it. That was the situation before the guild got formed. So now at least we own our things. We just can't get them on. So I guess in a way it's a step in the right direction until the times change and we can suddenly start getting things on.
Yeah.
Now actually, when I'm thinking to begin with, in the 70s, well, in '67, Nancy and I had our first musical off Broadway at what is now the Lucille Lortel Theater. And we self-produced in a way because my husband co-produced, David Cryer, ex-husband, David Cryer, partnered with Albert Poland, who became a very famous manager and producer. That was his first show, and I think he was 18 or 19 years old when he produced our first show. But we raised the money for it. We did backers auditions. My doctor invested, but the total investment was just $40,000 for a musical that had 12 characters, a band of 4, off Broadway. It cost $40,000 to put that on. And we raised it by just doing backers auditions from, you know, the people that we knew, and the average investment was maybe, I mean, a big investment would be $500. So we did that. Same deal with our second show in 1970, The Last Sweet Days of Isaac. Now that one was a huge hit. The first one ran still for 3 months or 4 months. Now's the Time for All Good Men. Ran that long, and it didn't. I don't think it returned its investment, but it was not a horrible flop. The next one, The Last Sweet Days of Isaac, actually ran for 1.5 years, and actually, I saved $17,000 that year.
Good for you.
That was really amazing.
Yeah.
That was my first time. Now that was a big success as a writer at that time.
And
that was
were
huge.
You acting in all of these
No.
pieces as well?
Oh, I acted in the first one. And that was a strange circumstance because we did not cast me to begin with, and we did not cast my ex-husband, who ended up, but what happened is the leading man that we cast ended up not being able to cut it. So my ex-husband, David, who had an incredible voice, stepped in, and 1 week before we were to open, the leading lady lost her voice completely. So I stepped in, and because it was starting to look like a vanity production, because we had raised the money and we were doing the whole thing, and nobody at that point wanted to do a vanity production. Today, we're all put in the position that we got to do a vanity production, but back then you weren't supposed to. So I changed my name as an actress to Sally Niven. That was, you will notice if you look at the cast of Now Is the Time for All Go, it was Sally Niven playing opposite David Cryer. But the reviews came out and Sally Niven got brilliant reviews and Gretchen Cryer did not. And I thought, oh damn, I changed the wrong name. And Sally Niven just never went on to fame because she disappeared from the theater world after that. Yeah.
Never say never.
No, but back then,
she might come back. You never know.
well, then, okay, so then the second show, we did the same thing. We did backers auditions, and that got produced by Hala Stoddard, and it was a big success, off-Broadway. Austin Pendleton starred in it with Freddie Weber. Then Shelter was our big Broadway show after that. Ran 1 month. And did not make any money and lost all the investment. Then Joe Papp produced I'm Getting My Act Together. Now, that was a not-for-profit. He asked for no enhancement money. We did not have to go out and raise money for that at all. And then that was a success and ran for 3 years here in the city and a year in Chicago and a year in LA and then all over every place. And so that one, and had movie sales 3 times, never was made.
Wow.
Movie wasn't made. So that one show actually made money. And then, I mean, that gave the illusion that you could make money in the theater. But that has not happened since. So, and then the other shows that we've had were commissioned. We did Anna for Green Gables for Theater Works, and that was just a commission thing. We did commission things for American Girl, did a couple of plays for that. And so now, though, going out and trying to get things on, we are facing this whole different world.
Yeah. We spoke about this briefly when you first came in the room about how you are seeing, you have witnessed a lot of changes in the country and in the theater's response to it's hard to be completely to not acknowledge that the current politics, the current culture affects us in the arts sector.
Oh yeah, sure.
And so I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, how you have kept going because you're writing a new show right now with your granddaughter. I want you to talk about that in a minute. But you have had this very long career where you just keep going.
Well, I do just keep going because I don't know what else to do. This is what I love to do.
Yeah.
And then I support myself by teaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's how I have.
But how do you keep going? How do you keep your spirit as bright as it is?
Well, because I think it's really fun to do what I do. I absolutely love the process. And I'm loving directing these solo shows now. That's really fun. And I hadn't really been a director before, but just since I've been working with solo artists, I've just kind of come into it. Because first I'm being the dramaturg, and then I'm becoming the director. So that's how that happened. But okay, how do I keep going? Well, it's just fun. And I just keep writing stuff. Well, Nancy and I have a sequel to I'm Getting My Act Together. It's called Still Getting Your Act Together. Getting My Act Together. And we're doing a 29-hour reading.
Oh, great.
November 7th. So you got to come to that.
Yes, I want to.
So, I'm not going to be in it. I'm not going to be in it.
Who is producing the 29-hour reading of that? Do you have a different producer?
Penguin Rep, who just did Jimmy's show, is going to be producing it. And we got Mary Lou Henner to play the role that I originated.
So you don't have to be the producer on that, thank
no,
goodness.
I am not.
Yeah.
No, Penn was just producing the 29-hour reading.
Right.
We don't have a producer for the whole show, but the first step these days seems to be these 29-hour readings, which costs something.
They do, yes. Yes, because development, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole
You know, I mean, the word development did not come into being until the last couple or 3 decades. Back when I started, you didn't develop a play. Somebody just produced your play.
Right.
You didn't develop it. You didn't do endless workshops, endless readings, endless going to festivals, try to do it now,
I know.
all that stuff. We didn't do that. A producer said, I want to do the play or the musical. And then they produced it. And the ones that I was in as a performer to begin with, back in the 60s and 70s, the first one was Little Me. Well, it just got produced, and it was worked on out of town. We went out of town.
Right. I think
and all the changes were made out of town. I remember we worked on one number in Little Me. Bob Fosse was the director, and it was rewritten 17 times before we but out of town. That's what you did out of town.
So every night you would go and maybe do a different version of it?
Yes, we had to learn a whole different Bob Fosse thing every night. Yes, for 17 nights or 17 performances until we finally got it. But that's the way, but the producer never questioned whether or not he, and they were always he's, were going to produce it. They committed, we are producing this. And they raised the money. David Merrick was the sole producer. Today, on the playbills, you have people. 73 producers. And at the Tonys, when they call the winner of the Tony, 73 people descend upon the stage because it takes that many. David Merrick, we're talking in the 70s and 80s, was the sole producer, and he raised the money and he powered this thing through. And that, let's see, what else was I in? Well, Little Me, and then I was in 110 in the Shade, and I was in 1776.
Oh, really?
And all of them were just that the producer was going to produce it. And then you went out of town, and that's where the work, but nobody was developing a musical or developing a play. That word develop makes me nuts.
I know we're kind of going all over the place, but because I'm so fascinated by all of the things you're saying. But I do want to ask you a question about this whole idea of process, because I think I have such an issue with people not understanding that not to develop it, but the work needs process and needs time to change and needs time to grow. And so I think it's interesting what you say about in those days when a producer would make a commitment to the writers to do the show, and it sounds like understanding that out of town you will be making changes.
Oh my God,
you will rewrite this number 17 times.
That's right.
Not saying it has to be perfect from this day.
1776, they cut an entire act out of it, out of town, a whole act, which meant an entire set that was constructed for the second act had to be cut. It started out as 3 acts, and then I think it started out, but they cut the whole battlefield, that whole segment of the play, and some of the characters, some of the people who, I was understudying a character that just got cut, but I still was understudying the other 2, both Abigail and Martha. Yeah. So I still had those 2 characters, but there was a 3rd character, a woman who was playing the role of a battlefield prostitute, because there was a whole battlefield thing with the soldiers.
And they cut that.
They cut all of that.
Probably a good idea.
But that was done out of town.
It's so
it was not done in development. No, it was just, and that involved a big financial decision, because they were cutting an entire set, which had cost $100,000, which
Right.
at that time, in 1970, was a huge chunk of change.
Yes.
To cut $100,000 of a set
Wow.
out of a piece.
That's so interesting.
So process, yes.
Yeah, so it's so important, and I think it has changed over time. But I
Well,
also,
tell me what you perceive that about the process.
I think that sometimes people are overly result oriented in a shortened period of time. So I think we all know that you write something and then it goes through changes and you learn more from having collaborators in the room, actors and directors, and you know that it changes and you rewrite and you keep changing it. But I have found in some instances that if the expectation is for a result to be finished early, or else it
gets dropped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing, not only for my own projects.
Yeah,
but for
and
other
that's a big difference because producers back then, in the 70s, committed to the writer and to the play or the musical, and they stuck with it. They didn't, and they saw it through to the end. Now, either it turned out to be a success or not, but they stuck with it. It wasn't that. Right now, I know what you're talking about. You're always on the line. Every new workshop that gets done, oh, is it going to go on from here or not? Is it going to get dropped?
Right.
Oh, you know. So there's until you actually are going into rehearsal
theater,
for
right.
the full production, you don't know that it's really going to happen.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a big difference.
Yes. So I want to jump forward to the new piece you're working on, and why don't you tell us about it? How you started thinking about it? Because I think I was in a meeting with you once where you started talking about the idea of it, and I'm so thrilled that it's
The crazy part is that 40 years ago, I wrote 2 songs. I wrote the music as well as the lyrics. Normally, when I wrote with Nancy always wrote the music, and I just wrote the lyrics. But I wrote 2 songs, one called The Captain of Industry, about a guy who's a multi-mega billionaire, head of the biggest fossil fuel company in the world, and then a song for his wife called Precious Days. I wrote it 40 years ago, and I knew that I wanted to write something about climate change 40 years ago.
wow.
But I did not know, after writing The Captain and writing his wife, I didn't know where it was going to go. Then a couple of things happened. Just maybe 2 or 3 years ago. My granddaughter graduated from college and came to live with me in New York. And she, Gracie Hyland is her name, she is a fantastic singer-songwriter. And she had just written a song called Early Teenage Crisis. And it was great. It was about wondering what the world is coming to and being in an early teenage crisis. Actually, she originally wrote early 20s crisis, but then we started talking about it, and the idea of having the daughter of the captain of industry and his wife be a 13-year-old who's in a teenage crisis about the fact that her dad is destroying the planet. So I decided it needed to be a fairy tale. And then the other things that happened is that I read 2 very important articles. I read about the last 2 northern white rhinoceroses on Earth. They are a mother and daughter. They are living in Kenya right now, Najin and Fatu. And Najin is 31 or 32 years old, and Fatu is 10 years younger than she. And it was a fabulous article in the New York Times, a guy who went over there and spent time with Najin and Fatu, who they're in Kenya. They roam freely, but they are guarded because they're the last 2 on Earth. And I was fascinated with them because I was thinking, when Najin, the mother, dies, Fatu is going to be the only one left. They are inseparable right now. They are together all the time. They sleep together, they walk around together. They are vegetarians. They only eat grass. They are not predators. But they almost breathe together at night, the guy said, the journalist said. Okay, so I read that article. And then the other one was, I read about the California condors. The condors in 1980 were almost extinct. They were down to 24 condors. And suddenly, the females started reproducing asexually, virgin births, without any males. They lay an egg every 2 years. Right now, we're up to 504 now. We were down to 24.
Wow.
But they have come back because the females, anyway.
They figured it out.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
So I started developing this whole fairy tale about the fact that the captain of industry has this daughter who's rebelling. She runs away to the homeless children's shelter. This is a fairy tale, where there are children from all over the world who've been made homeless by their climate disasters, teenagers. And Mother Earth has come to them and told them that they are the hope of the future, and has asked them to take care of this condor who's about to lay an egg. Katerina is her name. And so the kids are taking care of Katerina till this egg hatches. And that's their mission. Now, Mother Earth is a dominatrix, and the captain of industry goes to her 2 or 3 times. He just loves the game. And she punishes him by sending tornadoes and wildfires and rising seas and everything. And he refuses to say the safe word. His safe word is blueberry muffins, which his grandma used to make for him. So, but anyway, this is a fairy tale. And the little girl gets the idea that maybe Katerina Condor could teach Fatu, the rhinoceros, how to have a virgin birth so that they would not go extinct. And the end of the first act, and I'll leave you hanging, is they are flying on the back of Katerina Condor to Kenya to see if Katerina can teach Fatu how to have a virgin birth.
Wow.
Okay, so that's how that whole idea, and the fact that I'm writing it with my granddaughter, she's written about 3 or 4 of the songs in the show, is fun, because the whole idea is that our planet is in the hands of our young people now.
Yeah, that's incredible. So that answers my question about if you're writing for the moment, which you are.
Oh yes,
but that moment started 40 years ago.
Yes,
Who would know
I know,
that, right?
but I didn't know what to do with it 40 years ago.
Wow.
And it wasn't as urgently present. I mean, there were all of these, Bill McKibben was writing about the end of nature, and people were writing stuff. Well, Rachel Carson were writing these books about the dangers of what was happening in our environment, but it wasn't as pressing as it is today, with wildfires and tornadoes and you know, and literally places becoming uninhabitable because of climate change. And an administration and a president that is determined to destroy the planet, because not pretending that, in denial, you know, complete denial. So it's much more urgent now, and so that's why I got to get it on. I've got to find some billionaire who's a climate activist. Really,
yes,
seriously.
I know what you mean. I agree, because I think that this is how we shift people's thinking, right? We bring stories, we bring art to people so they can see.
Well,
things.
And that's why we keep doing what we do. When you ask me how to just keep going on, you keep going on because you feel an urgency about your work.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And you're writing out of a passion of some sort.
Right.
So that keeps you going. And then you got your day job going on.
Well, I want to wrap us up a little bit by asking you this question. What gives you hope today?
Well, that we all just are going to keep on doing what we do and find a way. We're going to have to look for how do we get our art out there.
Right.
And just the fact, okay, this is a silly little thing, but just the fact that this one show that I worked on with Jimmy Georgiades in my living room for a few years now is moving out into the world, and it found a little home at Penguin Rep, and now we're plotting what we're going to do next with. That gives me hope, because it means, okay, you can start something in your living room and maybe get it out there. And so there's, you know, we'll figure out a way to do this.
Yes. I know that I join hundreds and thousands of people being grateful that you have not stopped ever.
I am
and
not
that
stopping.
You keep writing and keep giving us your gift. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for talking about all of this.
Yes.
And for what you do. Christine, my God, you are a powerhouse. And
I just keep trying. I just keep trying to do stuff.
Well, yeah, and you do. Yeah. And you've got this great day job.
That's right, I know.
See, we all have to have our day jobs, and that keeps us going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's being creative in whatever ways we can find to be creative.
Yeah, I keep saying that I think, you know, we are professional vessels of empathy.
Oh, that's true.
And
that is very true.
And so that's a good thing. I feel good about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you touch lives and can make people feel something, and they go to the theater, and also I'm thinking the fact that we've had such a tyranny of screens, you know, ever since, and it may become even worse with AI and everything, but that people, there's going to be a backlash of people needing and wanting person-to-person relationships, because people are getting stuck on the screens, and then they're starting to be lonely and isolated and fat because they're sitting in front of their screens and they're not out there with people and doing stuff. And my grandson, who is currently living with me, 25 years old, it's a ritual, my grandchildren come and live with me after they graduate. Okay. He's talking about, he's in the tech world, but he's decided, no, he thinks he's going to be a teacher because he's so tired of just being in front of a screen. He's a brilliant programmer, but he says, no, he thinks he's going to go the other route. He's not going to get the pay that he would have made as a high-tech guy. But he is noticing that all of his friends from the engineering school that he went to are all sad, isolated, fat, which is awful to say, but if you're just sitting around and not moving your body, that tends to happen. And he's really thinking there's going to have to be a big change. I mean, people are going to have to get off the screens, which is live theater.
Well, right. That's, I think, why, even though periodically people will say the theater is dying, I don't believe it.
No, I don't
because
either.
I think that we do need this personal interaction, and you know how the alchemy of a room changes if you're experiencing and empathizing at the same time over one story. There's nothing like it.
I know. Andrew Yang had a thing today, I don't know whether it's his podcast or what, where he was talking about one of the things that can enliven us these days is theater. I mean, it's interesting that he, a politician, was saying that. And I have often thought that an answer to the dying small towns in the country, towns who have had their schools removed when they, and had their businesses removed when the Walmart came 20 miles away, and so, you know, little small town life, now they're just a cluster of houses with nothing holding them together. I have thought that theater groups, community theater groups, could help people who are feeling isolated and alone and without community. So I feel hope for the theater in general, as almost as a reaction and an antidote to people being on screens.
It's an act of resistance.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to share any time with you I can.
Well,
thank you.
This is great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much to all our guests this season. This podcast is sponsored by the Dramatists Guild Foundation, a nonprofit organization that fosters playwrights, composers, lyricists, and librettists at all stages of their careers. DGF supports these writers with financial grants, free space to create new works, and career resources and programs. If you are a dramatist seeking support or are a lover of theater who wants to support the future of storytelling, visit dgf.org or follow at dgfound to learn more. Talkback is executive produced by me, Christine Toy Johnson, and edited and recorded by Bruce Johnson. Our music is by Andrea Daly. As always, to be continued.